So Kobe Kevin as well. And I want to say that we are encouraged by your contributions or our social media streams. Go look for us, share the content as well. We just want to make sure that the sort of education that we do goes on well. And today's your birthday, Suhuyini, Suhuyini. And so we encourage you also to shine your light in the eyes of God, the Prophet Muhammad. And you don't have a problem. You're the junior brother of our guest here this morning, my colleague as well. But now he's a top politician now. So Alhassan Suhuyini, Member of Parliament for Tamale. No mischief, relax.
You have just, I mean, oh, Roland.
Alhassan Suhuyini,
you can't stop yourself.
Member of Parliament for Tamale North. Alhassan, you went unopposed, eh?
By His grace.
By His grace, mashallah.
By the support of the people of Tamale
Mashallah.
North.
I saw you in the pictures.
Support that I don't take for granted at all.
And Suhuyini is your junior brother?
Yes, my younger brother, Suhuyini, Saibu Suhuyini. He's in Takrady. He works with the Cocoa Board. Happy birthday to him. Happy
birthday, Suhuyini. We're encouraged. And I have my other Muslim brother here, very calm, collected, patrols punches under the table, Awa Muhammad. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. Nice meeting you once again.
Nice meeting you too.
I'm told that there's supposed to be, today is 18th, eh?
Yes.
Oh, 17th is tomorrow.
So tomorrow.
Okay. So there's supposed to be a press conference. It's a joint press conference between Ghana and the IMF. So we'll discuss that. And then, Dr. Baumia, do we have, Awal is here, so we'll, but we won't respond to it. Let's watch the video once again. Awal Mohammed.
Suffering. Teacher trainees are suffering. Nurses are suffering. And nursing trainees are suffering. Patients are suffering. Students are suffering. Patients are suffering. Students are suffering.
Campaign is campaign. All you have to campaign is campaign. So one of the things we'll be discussing is that the 2024 campaign has started in earnest. The NPP is supposed to have their primaries when?
November 4th. Yes.
So
that's the presidential. But the parliamentary will start with the orphan constituencies, that's his area, and some other places like Asawasi where I vote. Then we will have the sitting MPs next year.
Who are the leading contenders for the NPP in Asawasi?
It's only one person who has shown interest now, Manaf. Yes, he's a veteran aspirant. He started from 2015. Yeah, so he's the only person for now who has shown interest because he's met executives. I'm a delegate, so he met us and declared his intention to us that he will contest again.
I assure you that this time he will go all the way.
I certainly believe.
In the past, he made such efforts, but
yeah, he contested once and lost. He tried contesting again. Then the party took a decision that Ali Du should go unopposed, and he took the party to court. And
the Manaf guy.
Yes, later he withdrew, and he was suspended. He was with the office.
So he's the one going to face
president.
Muntaka.
Yes. He's the one going to face Muntaka.
It will be nice. Good morning to you. Nikal Domenyo, you're based in Charlotte in the United States of America, as well as your wife, Angela, and the kids. I'm grateful always. He's a great guy. So when I visit the next time, we'll have some great interactions. But as it is, we have this we want to discuss. Now we've been told that the IMF board approval is coming soon. So I know that now Suhuyini and his friends within the NDC will not be complaining because finally we've gotten to the destination point. But my colleague who has been monitoring all the discussions in the United States between the International Monetary Fund and the government of Ghana's team led by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, well, he has this compilation about the presumptive date of announcement tomorrow.
We have the strongest of indication that the program would be approved when the IMF Executive Board meets later this morning. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, have all been here to log the deal, and they have done just that. Ordinarily, a statement or news conference would have followed right after the approval, but the parties have chosen to hold a presser on Thursday We'll get to know what the modalities of the $3 billion loan are, i.e. the terms of the loan, which would guide the disbursement of the facility. Remember, the first tranche is $600 million, and the rest of the 5 tranches would only be released if the government successfully implements the policy reforms agreed, but also importantly, if the bilateral and private creditors agree to a debt restructuring well in time. So quite a huge day for Ken Ofori-Atta and his team, but there is still work ahead because the government would have to continue engagement with the creditors to restructure the external debt and the outstanding domestic debt quick enough.
And Awal, tell us, we've now reached a decision point. Is that what is being communicated in the corridors of government? Because this one is what we picked up. Of course, the finance minister has also put up a post that there will be this joint one, 2:30 GMT tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you so much, and good morning to our cherished viewers. And let me say congratulations to my brother for going unopposed in his constituency. It means the constituents, especially within his own political party, felt that he's done very well, and that's the reason they have credited him with that. He, Haruna Idris, and some few other MPs went unopposed. But in Tamale, or in Northern Region, I can assure him that the next elections, especially when you have Dr. Bawumia as candidate, we will take a lot of seats from them, because if you check now, we have 9-9. It should tell you that indeed we're poised. And
you mean Northern Region?
Yes, Northern Region proper.
Ghana.
Northern Region proper, where he comes from. We have 9 MPs, and they also have 9 MPs for the first time, and I'm sure we'll overtake them the next elections. If you allow me just to say a word with the picture that you...
Oh, no, we'll talk about it the second time. Let's
okay, the second time, okay, right.
What we'll be discussing, I mean, whether we have 2024 election campaign starting, so just relax with it.
That's right.
We'll start the politics. So
that's fine. Okay, right. Yes, it's true that there will be a joint press conference tomorrow, and you have said in your opening remarks that my brother, Honorable Suhuyini, and his people will now say that we've gotten to the destination. That's not the destination. Even if you check the communications from your own journalist, he said it will come in tranches, and there will be some other work to be done. Again, when we even took the decision to go to IMF, we never said that that is the only elixir that will really help Ghana move out of the woods. We said we have a broader program, post-COVID-19 recovery program. And one of the programs is the IMF. When you check, that's what the finance minister went to Parliament to say. So one of the hurdles is the IMF, and we're almost clear with the hurdle, and we can only say that it's one of the things that after we're done with the IMF hurdle, we will be able to really move faster on the recovery. So yes, we expect that today, this morning, the approval will come, and they will front load $600 million. Then there will be the joint press conference on really everything that entails within it, and we can only say we are a bit successful in this. So then we move ahead with the general post-COVID-19 economic recovery program, which is the general economic program that we said we'll do to make sure that we resuscitate the ailing economy. So yes,
let me just catch you there, because I quickly want to speak to Professor Lord Mensah before we come back to the studio. Professor Lord Mensah has a busy morning, so we just want to pick his thoughts. Professor Lord Mensah, based on what you're monitoring on the market academically, from the perspective of the international community and the business community, are we likely to get this taken off and running, so to speak, this final announcement that we're there?
Roland, can you repeat your question, please?
I'm saying that I'm asking, based on what you are monitoring, are we finally now at the decision point where this joint press conference with the IMF is going to be the ultimate decision announcement that we finally have the money coming in?
Well, you see, what we got from the creditor community was more or less an assurance. And I think the assurance needs to be put in the form of an MOU, which at the end of the day, the IMF will use that to take a decision, whether they should extend, the credit facility to that sort. So since the announcement was done somewhere, last week, later part of last week, I don't know the number of meetings that have gone on for which the creditor committee will come up with an MOU, spelling out the modalities as to how, with timelines, as to how they want to sail through the credit restructuring with the Ghana government. And so for me, there's a difference between, the creditor committee, giving up assurance compared to, putting something on paper, which is an MOU. And if we should go by the words of the creditor committee, then we can comfortably say that, yes, indeed, we have more or less an agreement, indirectly, which the IMF can base their decision on that. But then we also need to appreciate that the creditor space, external creditor space, has more appreciation in restructuring modalities than, our internal, creditor space. And so I think things will move, swiftly. With the verbal assurance they gave, I believe that it will end up, being an MOU, and it will build up into the decision making of the board of the IMF. And so, for me, it's more or less an assurance.
Okay, so it means that it's just a step towards finality, not the final one. As in they make the announcement tomorrow, and then in 2 weeks or a month, the first tranche of the money is hitting our accounts.
Yeah, if you look at the sequencing,
okay.
Looking at the latest by first week in June, we should see something with Bank of Ghana.
All right. So these actions by the IMF, how does it rub off positively on the capital markets, the multilateral donor community?
Right. It is obvious. If you take consideration the donor space, no donor would like to give you money when you are distressed. You know very well that even in our own homes, if you owe and someone gives you money, we don't take care. The money will go to pay your debt, and at the end of the day, you will end up not using the money for the purpose that it was intended for. So, if you look at the engagement with external, supporters of this country, talking about the World Bank and other institutions, they may want to wait for us to restructure our debt. To ensure that at least there's an improvement in the fiscal space, so that the money they will give us, or the kind of soft loan they will give us, will not end up, paying our debt. And so now that we have this creditor committee assurance, obviously, putting that on the MOU and then getting a restructuring will definitely, entice other, donor countries or donor support communities coming. Another thing we also need to look at is that every external investor who is coming into our environment, they want to make sure that the country has enough dollars so that when they come and invest and their money are converted in cedis, going back, they should be able to get their dollars back. So a situation where, they should be able to convert their cedis to dollars and then send it back to the investors. A situation where your balance of payments is down means that your dollar buffer, is down. They know very well that when they come and invest and put the money in their economy, reverting it back to where they took the money from in the form of dollars will be difficult. So now that we're going for this IMF 600 billion, tranches, which will end up being 6 billion, they'll know very well that there's going to be an improvement in our dollar buffer. And so in itself can attract investors. These are all soft benefits we're going to gain from the IMF engagement.
Okay.
Apart from the hard benefit, which is the money.
All right. Okay. Professor Lord Mensan, something has been, I don't know whether it's troubling or I have observed.
Come again.
Okay, when we go into the market, okay, or when we get the approval, how long usually does it take for you to gain enough confidence to get into the capital markets? And then when we get into the capital market, does it mean that we're back to square one? Because 2017, 3 billion, 2018, 3 billion, 2019, 3 billion. Then we had COVID funds in excess of that as well. And then we're back to square one. So does it mean that when we go back into the capital market, we go and do the same things?
I think the capital market, opening will be any moment from now.
Okay.
Because it took us some time to get out of the market. And if you look at, the happening, we need to improve our fiscal space. The commercial creditor should be able to ascertain whether we are likely to pay our debt or not. And so, as we speak now, even the restructuring, we don't know how the commercial creditors are going to react. What we have now, the assurance we have now is more or less from the bilateral, creditors. And so, in the commercial space, which is the Eurobond market, it's going to be difficult in as much as we're going to have that kind of credibility as far as IMF backing is concerned. The investor community at the Eurobond market, they want to wait for some time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for this this perspective. We wish you all the best for the day, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So, Awal, so what he's saying is we don't have to tickle ourselves and be laughing. So does it mean that in the corridors of government, that sense of caution is there? Like, as in, if we get into the market because we have the credibility, we're going to borrow prudently. It doesn't mean you won't borrow, but you borrow to spaces where you can have some returns on that borrow.
Yeah, one of the advantages of going to IMF is that at least you get the fiscal space to really borrow, and use that borrowing to pay your debt. You use it for some capital expenditure and so on. So that's why when I made my opening remarks, I said it, that the IMF is not the only solution to our economic problems. It is only one of the solutions. That's why I said when the finance minister went to parliament, he mentioned it clearly that it's post-COVID-19 recovery program. And one of the measures is for us to go to IMF for a balance of payment support. Then we will come in-house, do the tax expansion of the tax net, and some few other measures that will help us resuscitate the economy. So yes, it's true that we understand that indeed the IMF is there. Tomorrow there will be some modalities that will be explained to every Ghanaian to really understand that indeed we have gone to IMF. We expect some drawdown from the IMF so that at least we show up our reserve. Apart from that, there are some budgetary support that they will support us. And again, I know that we are with World Bank, and World Bank has agreed to give us around $900 million to also support us. And even the banking challenges, the World Bank has agreed to give us $250 million so that at least we set it aside for the banks, because the banks are really undercapitalized. So it's really these are the measures that government is taking to make sure that at least we
the way we keep harping on this IMF thing. Yes. So for example, Nimani said I should ask you whether this seems to be the solution to our problems.
No, I mentioned it. If he had paid attention, I said that it's not the only solution. I said it's just one of the...
What are the other solutions?
The others are that, you remember, we started this gold for oil program that has even resulted to at least reduction from 23 cedis per liter to around 11 cedis.
Are you saying the reduction we're seeing on the market is due to the good for oil policy?
It's part of it, because we have seen relative stability on the currency, because every month what we require to go, the dollar we require to go to buy this fuel is around $350 million every month, and now we don't require that amount to go. So definitely there is relative stability on the currency, and again there is a reduction to the extent that even yesterday, let's commend the GPRTU for at least reducing. This is something that it's not even a call, but they felt that really at this point in time they have to reduce by 10%. So if you're going to
oil prices have been down.
Yes, but
on the international commodities.
Yes, but when you check the reasons for increment in this country, it's not only oil prices at the market. It's forex, oil prices, taxes, and cost of storage. Okay. These are the factors.
On the corridors
you remember when it went to 23, it was still down at the world market.
On the corridors of government,
because the dollar was around 16 to 17 that time. That's the reason.
On the corridors of government, what is the current rate of the CD to the dollar?
I'll just cross-check and get back to you, because I just don't have it. Okay. But I know there is relative stability, and it's even coming down.
If a currency that was hovering between 6 to 8 Ghana cedis in September,
yes,
is now the current rate at which it is,
yes,
and if you even need it in emergency purposes in big quantities, you get it at a higher rate.
Yes.
How does that become an advantage of stability?
So it moved to around 16, and it has moved to around 11 now. So it means that, and with the 11, it took more than a month, and it was standing at a particular place. Don't forget that one of the problems associated with
the CD is 11 now.
Yes, it's around 11.
When was the last time you changed from
That's why I'm saying that I will have to check and get. But I'm telling you that the last time I changed was around 12 cedis. But I think now.
So you changed the last time 12 cedis.
Yes. I
think since the last time you haven't changed within that period, it's gone to 11.
So if it's even around 11, it tells you that the level of movement, at least it has slowed. That's very important. So one of the problems associated with COVID-19 in Russia, Ukraine, has to do with even the currencies, to the extent that at a point in time, you require more than £1 to buy $1. You remember, at a point in time, when it was moving from the 6 cities that you said to around 16 or 10 cities, even in the US, that was the problem. In the UK, that was the challenge, and so on. And inflation, too. You understand? So definitely these are challenges that are global in nature, and that's the reason we're looking at a general COVID-19 post-recovery program, so that at least we're able to resuscitate the economy and put it on a sound footing.
I don't know what you make of this. You know, we're at a high peak, and we're supposed to be happy about this. It's an improvement, we're told.
Roland, permit me to take you a little back, and I just want to use this opportunity to once again express my heartfelt gratitude to the people of Tamale North constituency, especially the opinion leaders, the chiefs, the imams, and our mothers. I want to thank them sincerely, and the executives of my party, from the branch to the constituency, for their continuous support and prayers. I pledge to remain faithful to the confidence that they have reposed in me, and I look forward to campaigning with them to retain the Tamale North constituency under the umbrella in the 9th Parliament. But let me assure Awal that, yes, sometimes for many of us it's heartbreaking that the NDC shares the 18 seats in the northern region equally with the NPP. But a lot of work has gone on, and I want to give him the assurance that if they are hoping to improve their margins, whether with Baumia, who is heavily discredited, or Alan Chairman Thing, they should look elsewhere and not the northern region. After our primaries, and like you said, we'll be discussing that in detail. I can assure him that right now, I'm very confident that we are going to win Myong constituency. We are going to also win the Nantong constituency. And when we begin to the discussions, I'll tell you why. In fact, Bimbila too is on the list. of constituencies that will be taken back under the umbrella fold. So, and we'll retain, inshallah, all the seats that we have. But we will get into details. Roland, on the IMF, what is depressing for me sometimes is how the role of keeping our government accountable, especially NPP government accountable, is sometimes reserved for me and my friends, like you put it in your intro, the NDC. And it should not be seen as a preserve of the opposition to keep the government accountable. And especially when, you know, the determination to keep the government accountable is sometimes referred to as complaints. It emboldens the government, like the arrogant one we have in office, to describe those who attempt to keep them accountable as naysayers. You see, that is why I like President Mahama. You recall only 2 days ago when he made his pledge to the people of Ghana, he was bold enough to say, I want to say this on record so you can, you know, hold me accountable. The decision to hold a government accountable should not just be left with the opposition. It should be left with all Ghanaians. We must all be responsible. And you see...
No, but we do that.
Yes, you do that. I must commend you. I'm just saying that when it is suggested that, okay, the NDC or Suhuyini and his friends will stop complaining, it's as if the message is that we have been complaining. But the fact is that we are all suffering in this country as a result of the reckless management of our economy. The market woman is suffering. The taxi driver is suffering. The teacher is suffering. The journalists are suffering. We, the politicians, are suffering more. So we are all suffering the consequences of the recklessness. And so it should not be the preserve of a group of people to complain. In fact, we must all be complaining. If that is what will solve the problem, we must all be complaining. But, Roland, one thing I like about the NPP is how they are able to sometimes even turn defeat into celebrations.
What do you mean by that?
Roland, we are all in this country. When they told us that going to the IMF is a mark of incompetence, that just seeking an IMF bailout is a mark of incompetence. That was the verdict. Today, we are even struggling to qualify to get a bailout. We are not qualified. They have mismanaged the economy to a point where we are not even qualified for a bailout. They are struggling to qualify for a bailout, yet they are celebrating it. And they want us to congratulate them. And they want us to believe they are better. And somehow, Roland, it is ignored. It is not seen as a mark of a big failure. How? You tag your opponents as incompetent because they went for an IMF bailout. In fact, they walk into an IMF bailout. You are sweating, bleeding, begging.
How do you mean? You mean the last time we went to the IMF,
Yes.
it was smooth sailing?
That's why I said they walked in.
Okay.
And in fact, the president at that time said we needed it for what? Credibility.
So why are we having difficulties now?
Because our economy was not as bad as it is today. All we needed was that credibility so that at least we could continue, because the opposition was so loud. And I recall Franklin Kujo and others telling us how he and Anta, Mohamed Amin Anta, now Minister of State at the Finance Ministry and the National Security Minister, posed, and I'll use the word pose, as civil society organizations to engage the IMF even before the NDC team arrived. Franklin Kujo wrote it on his Facebook. So the opposition had painted the government so black, not only to the IMF, but to the international community, that we needed that partnership with the IMF for that credibility's sake. So we did. Today they are struggling, bleeding, kneeling, sweating to get it. And yet they are triumphant about it. They are celebrators about it. And we don't seem to see the difference. Roland, this finance minister, who is with pride and with pomp announcing a press conference with the IMF tomorrow, told us in this country only a year ago that we will not go to the IMF. He didn't stop there, and so that is not my focus. He said, because the consequences are dire. That is my focus.
Is it the Nehemiah speech?
Yes.
Okay.
That the consequences of going to the IMF are dire. Those are his words. Why are we not in trepidation that we are going to the IMF today? Why is it all of a sudden triumphant news? News we must celebrate. Have we forgotten his caution that the consequences of going to the IMF was dire? And the Nehemiah speech, again, was because the visionary and the competent team of NDC experts had advised him to go early instead of waiting to go in an ambulance. The team that they have successfully propagandized as an incompetent team told him to go, or else he was going to go in an ambulance. And in his response, he said he will not go because going will be dire. Today he is in an ambulance, struggling to survive, and he is jubilating, and even trying to taunt those who told him to go earlier than he did. The inconsistency I can't comprehend. But my brother and co, that's why they are the New Patriotic Party. They can sell you a winter coat in summer, and you will pay hard-earned currency for it without realizing how needless it is at that point in time. Roland, we advised them. We said go. They said we won't go. Because of their delay, they are struggling now to even get a bailout. And yet, they are triumphant about it. They have no shame. They are celebrating it. And they are taunting those of us who knew better and advised them to do better at the time that they were very intransigent. Roland, he said we won't go. They finally went. They said the agreement was going to be first quarter, March, April.
Oh, it was supposed to have been January.
It kept shifting. They kept
February,
deceiving.
March.
And remember, even when they said January, I recall that Honorable Seth Thekwe, the incompetent finance minister, quote and unquote, told them that the earliest was May. Didn't he? He told them, go check the records, that the earliest will be May. But because they are so ignorant and arrogant about it, they failed to even take that advice. And so it's so ironic that today they tend to taunt, the people who knew better and told them and advised them better. Isn't it just ironic? You cannot reconcile the inconsistencies. Roland, even as we speak today, I have checked the schedule and they publish it. The IMF executive board meetings, it's published on the website. It's only, I think, I can't remember the country that is there, but it's not Ghana. But I recognize the fact that they have indicated that sometimes the table can change even within 24 hours.
I think
Angola
as
yes.
at last month.
Yes, they said that, even a day before the meeting, the schedules change.
Depends on
But as we speak now, there is no record of Ghana meeting the IMF, announced There's no record.
You mean official?
Announced official, yes, official record of Ghana meeting the IMF meeting Ghana. But like I said, it can change within the 24 hours. So I am not one to say that the meeting won't take place, because I have not seen any official announcement from the IMF. Because even as they advertise the schedules, they indicate that it can change within 24 hours. So we wish the team well. But let them begin to eat humble pie. Let them begin to be humble about these things. And Roland, to even show some, gratitude to the people of Ghana for how much we have tolerated their level of, recklessness. Because it is the people of Ghana who allowed for their hairs to be cut. Their savings, hard-earned savings, to be cut. The bondholders, the pensioners who are still marching on the street should be commended for what we have achieved. It is not a successful end as a result of any hard work by this government. It is, if it is any success at all, it is as a result of the sacrifices of the poor market woman who put in investments that has endured a haircut. So let them show that humility and the recognition of the contribution of Ghanaians, and begin to, shed off the arrogance and the intransigence, and listen to good advice when it is offered to them. But we cannot finish this discussion, Roland, without focusing on how much has come to this government and how all of that has been wasted, leading us into this abyss that we find ourselves.
We have free SHS, we have all the investment.
You just spoke about the 3 billion that they took from the international market.
The capital market.
The capital market. Only last year, the Bank of Ghana gave them $3 billion 1 year. 44 billion Ghana cedis was printed for them in 1 year. This IMF bailout will only give us, I understand, about 1.2 million. Billion. 3 billion. No, 1.2 billion this year.
The first tranche.
That's what they are expecting. Tranche. That's what they are expecting. Doesn't mean that's what they will get. But they are expecting 1.2 billion this year. And I'm saying that last year, the Bank of Ghana gave them $3 billion. What did it do? And let us not forget what Dr. Bawumia went around this country to do when the NDC borrowed about 90 billion. You recall the questions he asked about what that money was used for. Nasikano Wahi. 90 billion. He said 90 billion, 80 billion. Where is the money? Even though the hospitals were visible, the massive road infrastructure that were completed were visible. Those that were under construction were visible.
Suhuyini, don't you see roads?
The airports were visible.
Don't you see roads?
Roland, I'm coming. I'll address that. The markets were visible. Dr. Bawumia taunted the NDC for borrowing 90 billion. Roland, today we are talking about 500 billion. 500 billion compared to 90 billion. So if you said that the hospitals you saw were not enough, the markets were not enough, the roads were not enough, the airports were not enough, and all of those things that you saw were not enough.
All these are tied to expenditure.
If you were talking about 90 billion, today if you are talking about 500 billion, Roland, what should you be expecting?
The expenditure is approved.
Should you be expecting to struggle to qualify for an IMF bailout? Should you be, after getting over 500 billion, should you be struggling to qualify for an IMF bailout?
Now let's take you to the site of the International Monetary Fund, and let's look at their schedules. Of course, we're not mentioning this. So they say, as part of the fund's increased transparency, the tentative calendar of the formal meetings and seminars of the Executive Board for the next 7 days is shown below. And we've been showing you over time, over the last month or two, all the schedules. The last time we're not part. So this is signed by the Executive Board, and they say that they have it on their archives. Now, if we go up 17th, today is 17th. So
it's
the countries,
actually, yes.
So they are,
and Luxembourg.
So they have under review the second review under the executive extended fund facility and the extended credit facility arrangement. Now, for many of the times, the communication is that, oh, we have this so and so countries before the IMF. It depends on the state of your economy and how you're able to service your debts. Okay? So countries may be with the IMF, but for varied programs. And you go to the IMF for varied programs. So now we have Luxembourg. The Article 5 consultation, so it's taking place. Then on the 22nd, they're supposed to have some discussions on Indonesia. So let's move up. Then South Africa, and then we have Cote d'Ivoire, etc. So these are the countries that are there. So the reason why we're with the IMF is because we are in a debt default status. We just can't meet our obligations. This is what the finance minister did say just exactly a year ago. Actually, it's just a day or two to a year ago.
As my colleague, Deputy Minister said, we are not going to the IMF. Whatever we do, we are not. The consequences are there. We are a proud nation. We have the resources. We have the capacity. Don't let anybody tell you. Like when Joshua, Caleb, and the 10 others went to spy on the promised land. And only 2 of them came to say that we can do it. And the 10 went around the community murmuring, you can't, da 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 da. We are not people of short sight, you know. Then we have to move on. Okay. So let's think of us as who we are, a proud, strong people, the shining star of Africa, and we have the capacity to do what we want to do. If only we can speak that one language and ensure that we burden share in the issues ahead.
And so the shining star of government is here.
Yes.
You take a look at this.
I think I will be happy if you will also play the video of former President Mahama when he said he was not going to IMF. You remember when Dr. Bawumia went to Central University, he said the way they are managing this economy, they will have to go and seek for bailout at IMF. Former President Mahama has a video, and I know TV3, you have that video.
Yeah, we do.
Show us that
he lost
video
the
that
when
he said, no, at that
it's
time.
Because of these
so
things,
I'm saying
that's
that
how come he lost the election.
just juxtapose a finance minister and a president of the nation. A finance minister is saying that we're not going to IMF because
of the things he said. So
listen, I'm coming. That is what he said. Looking at the pronouncements between a president that time, because when he was president, when Dr. Bawumia went to Central University and said the way they are managing the economy, to the extent that he went and said, that was what the former president said at that time when he was president. So Dr. Bawumia said the way they are managing the economy, they will have to go to IMF for a bailout. He said we are not going to IMF. Later he came with Ekuyadonko and some people to go to Senchi to discuss, and they have to eventually agree with what Dr. Bawumia has said. Again, today you're saying we're struggling to get a bailout. And what you are publishing, you are rubbishing what your journalist has done. Because you played what your journalist has said, that there will be a meeting today.
No, we're not.
I'm saying that your journalist, Sani, has said that there will be a meeting today. And then to finalize everything. Then there will be an announcement tomorrow. So when you say it's not part of the schedule, it means you're painting the picture that indeed Ghana is not at IMF.
Please, no. And I'm putting it right here that we have. So what we did say was that these are the shadows of the IMF. Okay. So and then
but Ghana is not there.
No, Ghana is already under discussion with the IMF.
We are going to sign an MOU today, not under discussion.
No problem.
These are schedules for discussions and reviews. When you check, you have really.
But how is it wrong if I show the IMF's official calendar for the week? It's just the official calendar for the week.
It was Honorable Suhuyini who said that as we sit right now, he's gone there and he has checked and he has not.
So this is in response to Mr. Suhuyini.
Ghana is not.
I'm saying this is in response
on the drawing board. He said it. Then you publish this one, and I'm saying that you have a journalist over there, and your journalist has it's a video that he said there will be a meeting today, and tomorrow there will be a joint press conference. So this one is moot. I'm saying that when you say that it's not even part of the schedule, Ghana is not part of the schedule. Ghana is there for an MOU today.
We haven't,
not a review.
we haven't said Ghana is not having a discussion with
Okay. So, again, when you talk about going to IMF in 2014, 2015, when we said it was, as a result of mismanagement and incompetence, that is rightly so. The reason is that at that time, when you have inflation moving from single digit to 15.5%, only in Ghana, it means really there is mismanagement here. When you have policy rate reviewed to 25.5 at that time, when there are no, I'm coming. I'll just explain that. When there are no any shock anywhere, there are no shocks anywhere.
So the inflation moved to what again?
Single digit to 15.5%.
What's the inflation now?
Oh, but I'm building a point. I'll get there. You understand me? When inflation moved from single digit to 15.5, when GDP moved from double digits, 14 to 3.5, at that time, it should tell you that this is mismanagement. Today, we are in IMF with all our neighbors. Benin is there, Togo is there, Cote d'Ivoire is there. When you even publish, Cote d'Ivoire is there. Cote d'Ivoire is seeking for a bailout, and what they are seeking is even bigger than what Ghana is seeking. They are seeking for 3.5 billion. That's what Cote d'Ivoire is seeking. Our economy is even bigger than Cote d'Ivoire's economy, but they are seeking 3.5 billion because at least we all understand that there is bigger problem with COVID-19 and Russia-Ukraine. One of the biggest economies in Africa, South Africa, is also there. It's the first thing you published. So I can tell you that indeed today, it is a global phenomenon that has sent us where we have been to. The finance minister at that time, what he was mentioning, he has something he stepped his legs on. That place that you saw him talking, he was talking in relation to this e-levy. We felt that at that time we will get e-levy that will give us at least $1 billion a year. Our opposition people bastardized this to the extent that they lock horns with some media people, to the extent that media had to interview.
$1 billion. I thought the target was $6 billion for the year.
Yeah, I'm saying $1 billion a year. Dollars, $6 billion for
at the time, the rate was
exactly.
6 cedis.
I'm saying that
was just in 2020.
Yes, so yes, we're expecting $1 billion, which is a revenue that will come, and it's not a loan. So at that time, when we have rolled out a measure that we believe that we'll be able to get resources here, why do we have to go for a loan? And the government took that decision to go to IMF. It's not a decision that lies in the mouth of the finance minister. It's a decision by government. He can have his opinion. You had a lot of people having opinion. Even when we're implementing free senior high school, you had people within NPP who said, hold on. We said no.
So right now, the government in general is distancing itself from the utterances of the one who manages the economy.
Did I say that?
That's what you are saying.
Did I say that? I said he, at that time, had a measure that will help this country, and it was the e-levy. And we anticipate that we'll get $1 billion from the e-levy, $1 billion every year from the e-levy. And it is in perpetuity, at least until you
recover.
Exactly.
Or
maybe
finances.
you repeal that law.
Okay.
You understand? And someone is telling you that don't raise funds internally, go for a loan. And we're saying at that time, he said, we're not going. I myself, I sat on this platform to say that we're not going to IMF. But the cabinet took a decision that time, at that material moment, we needed this money. We didn't get it. So definitely we'll have to go for a bailout. So when you compare, in the time when the NDC walked in, there was no country, there was no neighboring country going to IMF to seek for a bailout.
There are always countries before the IMF.
No, I'm saying that that time we were even mentioning Cote d'Ivoire, that Cote d'Ivoire, they are our neighbors. But Cote d'Ivoire is not going to IMF for a bailout. Togo, Benin, and others were not going for a bailout. But today, they are all there. Almost all the bigger economies in Africa, Egypt is there. South Africa is there. They are all going for a bailout. It tells you that there is a fundamental problem globally. And that's the reason they are there. You even mentioned Luxembourg. These are advanced countries, but they are there.
But that also should tell you that the fact that Luxembourg is there, because Luxembourg, just go and look at their GDP and the rate of revenue. Are you saying that?
But Ghana's GDP is also the second biggest GDP in West Africa. And eighth in Africa.
Are you saying that the fact that a rich entity corporation or individual or even country goes in for a facility, because these are facilities,
Yes.
To restructure, to put your finances in check, it means that you are poor.
No.
Okay. Because we are poor.
No,
we
we are
can't
not.
service
We are
our
not.
debts.
We are
It's
not. We are not poor.
all these countries
We are debt distressed country. We are distressed. That's the reason they said when they approve.
What's
when
the
you
current
listen
rating
to, when you
for-
listen to
for Fitch?
when you
What's
listen
it?
to when you
It's
listen
RD.
to Georgieva, that's the IMF boss. She
Are we
mentioned-
not in a position where we can't service our debts?
That's why
There's
I
a
said
difference
we're-
between
I said
being
we're
debt distressed.
Yes, because we cannot service them.
Okay, great.
You
Now you're
understand? Yes,
acknowledging.
yes, we can't service them. This is a matter of public records. That's the reason we have reached an agreement that at least let's reschedule our debts. That's the reason we started with the debt restructuring. Again, we didn't say we'll get the IMF agreement on in January, because we started the debt restructuring because it's one of the conditions that we should do debt restructuring. We started in January. How can we tell you that we'll get it in January? We said first quarter. We are only 2 weeks in the second quarter. We're just 2 weeks in the second quarter, and we're able to secure it. So it is not something that we envisage that at least first quarter of the year we will get it. But we started the debt restructuring, and we did not envisage what will have happened, because we were thinking that by January we're done, because we gave even a deadline in December. You remember, we gave a deadline in December. Then we had to review it 3 times. So definitely you had to push the agreement to this May that we're seeing. And we are only 2 weeks into the second quarter.
Only.
Yes, only 2 weeks into the second quarter, and we have reached an agreement. And today there will be an MOU. Tomorrow there will be an announcement. By next week, we'll get around 600 million into Bank of Ghana account to show up our reserves. That's very important. So indeed, when you check the time they were going to IMF, juxtapose it with this time, you will know that indeed it is something that triggers this. And that is what has triggered Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa, Egypt, Benin, Togo, and other countries to also go there.
You see, Roland.
Yes, sir.
There's a need for us to come to these discussions sometimes with some level of honesty. At the time that Ghana walked to the IMF under the previous administration, Ghana's ranking was moved from, I think, B+ to B-.
That's true.
Dr. Baumia described it
Or just be negative.
Yeah, he described it as junk. And remember, I told you that one of the reasons why we went to the IMF was for policy credibility. And I mentioned how that the credibility of Ghana was so dented. Yes, how the credibility of Ghana was so dented by the vociferous minority group that sometimes, posed as civil society organizations. And I repeat that Franklin Cudjoe has indeed revealed that before the Ghana team could meet the IMF team, he was there with Mohamed Amin Anta, who is now Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, and Honorable Kandapa, who is now National Security Minister, posing as civil society organizations. They met the IMF before they met the NDC team. And so the credibility of Ghana and its government was so dented that we needed that partnership. So even though we're ranked or rated B-, it was, Dr. Baumia said it was junk. Today, what's our rating?
RD.
What does that mean? Beyond junk. That's what it means in the ranking. In fact, B- was not junk. In fact, it is C or C+ that is junk. But at the time, B- they said was, yes, CC is what is junk. But today we are even beyond C. Are you getting the level of decay that we are speaking about? Again, Roland, my brother says that the situation at the time was not global. Yes, it wasn't. But again, like I said, let's come to these discussions sometimes with some level of honesty. The government had introduced a single spine salary structure that was thought to be revenue neutral. Mm-hmm. Remember, President Kufuor announced it when he was handing over hot potatoes, handed on into the hands of the new government. Fortunately, Labour at the time, understood the trick and gave the new government of Professor Mills time to, take time to implement it. And they did.
You mean the
that single spine salary structure implementation saw the doubling of salaries of workers in this country. We haven't experienced that before. I mean, we haven't experienced that since after. We haven't. It doubled. Many workers had their salaries doubled. So that was a good thing. But that also resulted in revenue shortfalls for government. That was a fact. Because it was thought to be revenue neutral, but it wasn't. So government now took all the revenue it had to pay these salaries. And that was what President Mahama meant when he was speaking about the single spine salary structure and said we have all eaten to the bone. But propagandists as they are, they turned it around to suggest that President Mahama was saying he and his government have chopped them meat to the bone. But he was speaking about how the single spine salary structure had resulted in us using all revenue to pay workers and having nothing left. That was the first rigidity that the economy was faced with. The second rigidity was that in that year, or that period, around that period, gold prices had gone down, cocoa prices had gone down, and oil prices had gone up unpredictably. It's a fact. You can check. In fact, I recall that at the time, Ken Ofori-Atta criticized Seth Thekpe for not predicting the rise in oil prices correctly. It was the reason the stabilization levy was introduced. Let's be honest. So that was global in nature because we had no control over the prices of gold. We had no control over the prices of cocoa, and we had no control over the prices of oil. These commodity prices, suffered these shocks. And so our budget was thrown out of gear. The third one had to do with the energy crisis. Energy crisis that President Mahama did not engineer. Energy crisis that he inherited. I am a reporter. You are an old one, so I'm sure you remember.
I do remember.
In those days, under President Kufuor, we had Dumso. Under President Mills, we had Dumso. And all the experts at the time predicted that if we did not invest in the energies, if we didn't, that's what I'm saying. At the time, that's why I'm just building the point that under President Kufuor we had it, under Mills we had it. And the experts then, you and I were interviewing them, they told us that if we did not invest in the energy sector, we're going to have a crisis.
On the production side.
We did not. And so the crisis hit under President Mahama. Being the visionary and bold leader that he was, he pledged to resolve Dumso, and he did. Because there were three problems. It was the financial problem that had to do with, some of the banks not willing to invest in the energy sector. It was the fuel problem. And you will recall again the West Africa gas pipeline reports. Today, journalists don't know about WACP. Do they? They don't know. But WACP was central to our energy.
Actually, it was our foremost alternative to hydro.
To hydro.
When we had the experiences in Kufuor's
Do you know why new journalists don't know about
I remember
WACP
the Doom song within the Kufuor period very well because it was at a time in my life. So
yes. So, Roland, WACP was
but we
one of the
experienced the
reasons,
longest one that year.
That's what I'm saying. That was a crisis. The crisis had hit because of long neglect of that sector. And so the sector was fixed. The financial problem was fixed. The fuel problem was fixed with Ghana gas being brought on board, fast-tracked. And then you had the Dumso, let me just put it that way, fixed. But at the time that it was fixed, the heat was already on the economy. And I've just mentioned these three things. And so because of that, because you want us to wrap up, so I'll just wrap up.
I want to go on
so
to
I'm
the
saying
politics.
that let us be real, let us be honest with some of these discussions. That look, it is not as a result of somebody's.
Awal also to recall, right? If you are recalling it today,
no, he recalled. He recalled. I'm just responding.
Okay.
I'm just responding to what he's recalling, and I'm making the point that at the time, there were real problems that hit the economy that were out of the control of the managers of the economy at the time.
All right.
What was in their control was to fix the problem, which they did. And so by the time that they handed over to you, and remember, all of this happened when we just had one oil well. By the time that they handed over to you, they handed over 3 oil wells, they handed over a fixed, energy sector, because you had ESLA and others to now fix your financial sector. You had Ghana gas to now fix your fuels, problem, and you had increased capacity with Car Power and others all coming on board. So all of these problems were fixed. for you to take off. But your recklessness and your mismanagement started showing in 2019. And even by 2020, 2021, when we're advising them to go to the IMF, and I'm not the one saying it. Look, the World Bank president made mention of it. David Malasi, or what is the name? Malpass. David Malpass made that point that if Ghana had gone to the IMF and taken the DSSI,
the debt suspension,
we would not be where we are.
Right. Even on the show and all that, Professor Lord Menson,
and the arrogance of
had given us.
It's what has led us to where we are.
It just became a passing speech. So I have from Ashali Botwe, Eric, saying that tell him that's Ashita Awa, that countries didn't label IMF as small boys. And also didn't say they were a proud nation. It is the disrespect in government's communication that has brought us here. Now, I promise, so let's do 10 minutes of the politics.
Right.
John Dramani Mahama, so NDC already, they have their campaign running. It's normal with opposition parties. And so now the government in power has to make sure that, so we saw the Baumia cars. How many has been brought in? Please show the Baumia car. Awa hasn't seen it. So show the Baumia car. How many has been brought in?
Just a quick response. In 2010, Kufuor, before he implemented the single spine salary structure, had oil, envisaged there will be oil.
We discovered oil in 2007.
We implemented the single spine in 2010. We started selling our oil in 2010. So you cannot tell us that there were revenue shortfalls. There were no revenue shortfalls for us to be able to really say this. So oil came. That was the reason we had to even go for GDP growth of 14%, because it was oil induced.
So what Awal doesn't know is that when we implemented a single spine, not all workers were rolled on in 2010.
So yes,
you know that.
Yes, I know it was gradual. But I'm saying
by the time everyone was hit,
money was also money started coming.
Let's move on.
So the economy was doing well under Mills. When Mills, that was how former President Mahama got his incompetent tag. Because under Mills, it was single-digit inflation. It was a very good policy rate. And when former President Mahama took over in 2013, then the economy started coming down. And that was the reason he was named the incompetent one. So, yes, I have seen the pictures. I have seen two that you have shown. This is something that I have seen.
There are only two cards that
yes,
we're showing.
But that's what you are showing. Or you are showing more than two. Because this has been on almost every single NDC social media communicator from last night.
Are you calling the TV3?
No, I'm saying that these pictures, these same pictures.
Because we didn't get it from NDC people.
Yeah, it's on
social media.
No, I'm only mentioning that these two pictures have.
You mean the pickups are only two?
The pickups, yes, the two pickups that I have seen.
I've already seen three.
Okay.
Please restart the thing because why is not seeing well?
Yes.
This is 4,
okay.
5.
Okay.
And you are saying it's only two that we're showing?
Yeah, I'm saying that this picture, this is
you have seen this one.
So I have seen it on almost.
But we're not saying it's bad, though. We're only saying that campaign has started.
I get it. I have seen it on almost every single NDC social media communicator publishing it that indeed pensioners' money and a lot of.
That's what they are saying.
Yes, a lot of commentaries around it. And even right now, when you even
please show John Mahama too.
When you even played it, you also had Dr. Baumia's voice beneath it. I don't know if that is mischief because you said
no. We pick it from social media.
Yeah, because when you post it and you said nurses are suffering, teachers are suffering, and so on, and you are posting this, it means you are. I mean, this. I don't want to say derogatory, but but you're telling, but you're telling you're really communicating something different from just showing it.
Okay.
Now,
so how should we communicate?
Dr. Baumia is contesting. He went to Parliament, and he's still doing the consultations. And next month, I am upbeat that he will come and announce to the people of this country